Welcome to another episode of Super Fast Corner. I'm your host, Kevin Mueller, and today I'm going to be talking to you about a brand new product from MC3WLS, a magnetic center shock. That's right, you heard it, a magnetic center shock. And I'm going to talk to you about some of our product features as well as why it's so important for a center shock to work well on your Mini Z. So let's take a closer look at the product. Okay, so you might be wondering, what does a center magnetic shock look like? Well, it's right here. And as you can see, it's working really well on our MC3 chassis. And you might be wondering, well, how does it create any dampening? And that is because right here, we got a magnet inside this little magic nut. And what it does is creates friction between the shaft and the shock body, and that creates dampening, which allows your rear tires to stick to the ground. So it's the first of its kind, and it requires no grease, no mess, a very simple setup. It's basically set and forget, and you're on your way. Okay, so another great feature of our shock is that you can easily remove your main spring by simply removing the spring retainer washer right here, and then pull off your spring, put on a new spring, put back the retainer, as you can see here. A little bit hard to do this when it's on the car. There we go. And there you go. So now we got a new spring on, and we didn't have to adjust any of the springs, the rebound spring. We're ready to rock. Our center shock is so much better than anything else on the market right now. So you know that there are two options when it comes to 1/28 scale center shocks, and that's either the Kyosho oil shock or pretty much everybody else's dual shock with grease used as the dampening application. And they both work, but of course they have some flaws. The oil-filled shock that you get from Kyosho, it's very hard to set it up properly, make sure that you have the right oil in it, and you can get either air pockets where you will have less dampening, or you can actually put too much oil in it and get hydraulic seizing where the piston doesn't move as well as it should. And the other big issue with a Kyosho shock is it doesn't have a rebound spring, which allows you to control the amount of droop in your rear ride height. The grease shocks are dual shock or dual spring shocks, and they work well in terms of allowing you to adjust the droop. However, the issue with grease is that it tracks a lot of dirt and dust, and then the shock gets seized or it gets sticky, and there's even the ability for the grease to pack, where you have a dampening in one section of the shaft and then the other shaft has no grease, so then there's no dampening. And this all causes a loss in the rear traction of your car. So we know that RCP tracks are flat, but really they have a lot of bumps in them because they're made with little tiles, and the tiles are all a little bit different in their levels. So every time your car goes from one tile to the next tile, it gets a little bit of a jolt on the rear suspension. And keeping your car planted, especially at the end of the straightaway when those vibrations are happening at their highest, is really important to making sure that the rear end is stable. So with our shock, we eliminate any of that inconsistent dampening by using a magnet. And I think that is why we got one of the best products on the market. So enjoy. Thanks for coming and watching another episode of Super Fast Corner.